Kimmel thought he was in control until Stallone hit him with one quiet line that flipped the entire show. No yelling, no anger, just presence. And it hit harder than anything Rocky ever threw. The internet hasn't stopped talking since. It was supposed to be just another lighthearted interview. Jokes ready, audience warm, cameras rolling. But when Stallone walked off that stage, no one was laughing, and no one forgot what he said. It all started like any other night at the El Capitan Theater. Lights up, cameras rolling, crew buzzing. The usual Wednesday night machinery of late-night TV. On the surface, nothing unusual. But in the walls? In the air? Something was brewing. Earlier that month, Stallone had made an appearance at a small veterans event in San Antonio. It wasn't televised. No press, no handlers. Just him, a podium, and about 200 people in folding chairs. His speech was short, but one quote lit up the internet. Hollywood forgot what real sacrifice looks like. That was it. 10 words. But they hit like a hammer. Veterans groups shared the clip. So did former soldiers. So did political commentators, on both sides. Within hours, the internet had turned Stallone's quiet speech into a full-blown cultural grenade. Some praised him for saying what needed to be said. Others called him out for biting the hand that feeds him. Stallone didn't respond. No follow-up interview. No clarification. He just went silent, which of course made everyone want to ask him about it even more. And Jimmy Kimmel? He saw an opportunity. The producers loaded the monologue with easy targets. Tech billionaires, a weird celebrity breakup, a soft jab at AI-generated rom-coms, standard fare. Then the setup came. Our next guest is the man who made underdogs legendary, who wrote Rocky on a coffee table with his last $50, and who now thinks he's the conscience of Hollywood. Please welcome Sylvester Stallone. Laughter, applause, some cheers, a few raised eyebrows. Stallone walked out calm, navy jacket, black tee, same confident gait, same easy smile. He shook Jimmy's hand, sat down, crossed one leg over the other. You'd think it was just another night, but when the cheers faded and the first real question dropped, something shifted. So, you're saving Hollywood's soul now? Jimmy smiled wide. The crowd laughed. Stallone didn't. He tilted his head just slightly. Not annoyed, not tense, just, measuring. Then came the reply, low and deliberate. Someone has to remember the folks we forgot. The room quieted. Not dead silent, but that kind of hush that follows a line that lands harder than anyone expected. Kimmel blinked, chuckled, tried to pivot. Look, I saw that clip. You've got people saying you should run for office now. Stallone leaned back, arms resting on the chair's armrests. He nodded slowly, like he was letting Jimmy have his moment before taking his. I've spent my life writing characters who fight for something. And most of those characters, they don't have microphones. They don't have fan clubs. They just do the work. That's who I was thinking about. Kimmel smirked. Tried again. But don't you think it's a little dramatic? I mean, you said Hollywood forgot sacrifice. You don't think that's a bit much? Stallone didn't answer right away. He looked at Kimmel, not with hostility, just with that same steady gaze that made opponents hesitate in a ring. You ever spend time with someone who lost both legs in a war we forgot how to spell? He asked. I have. I shook that guy's hand, and when I left, he said one thing. Thanks for not making it about you. The room stilled again. Even the camera crew looked up from their monitors. Kimmel leaned back slightly, trying to read the energy. It wasn't angry, it was focused. Like Stallone had entered a gear few people ever use, somewhere between calm and unshakable. Hollywood's full of talent, Stallone continued, but sometimes we confuse spotlight with substance. I'm not calling anyone out. I'm just saying, maybe we should stop clapping for causes we don't understand. No applause, no punchline, just truth hanging in the air like smoke. Kimmel adjusted his tie, forced a smile. Okay, we're getting deep tonight. Stallone smiled too, but his was real. Depth's where the meaning lives, Jimmy. There was a beat, then laughter. This time not canned, not triggered by a flashing sign. It was honest, slight, nervous, but real. Kimmel tried another lane. So you think Hollywood's out of touch? Stallone shrugged. I think we're loud. And sometimes when you're loud too long, you forget how to listen. That one landed like a right hook. Clean, unexpected, respectful. The audience was no longer laughing. They were leaning forward. Stallone didn't flinch, didn't grandstand. He wasn't looking to win anything. He just spoke like a man who'd seen enough to know when words mattered. Kimmel, to his credit, softened a bit. The crowd wasn't with him, tonight in the usual way. They weren't there for a roast. They were there now for something else. Something they hadn't expected, but weren't willing to miss. You've played heroes your whole life, Kimmel said, changing tone. You ever feel like that comes with responsibility off-screen too? Stallone's eyes flicked toward the camera. Not directly, but enough that it felt like he was talking to someone through it. I don't think of myself as a hero, he said, but I've had the chance to wear that skin for a few hours at a time. And when you wear it long enough, it starts to ask you questions. Kimmel tilted his head. Like what? Like what you really stand for, who you're willing to lose for, and whether the applause matters if you're clapping for yourself. There it was again. That pause, that stillness. The oxygen in the room felt different, like everyone had quietly stood up inside themselves. We make movies about courage, Stallone continued, but sometimes we're cowards when the camera's off. He let that hang. I'm not perfect, far from it, but when I met a vet who told me Rambo got him through rehab, not because of the guns, but because the guy didn't quit, I realized that kind of hope comes with a weight. You can't joke your way around that. The audience was still. Even the security guard at the back stopped pacing. Kimmel tried to bring it back with a smile. Okay, but it's not like you don't have a sense of humor, right? Of course I do, Stallone said. I'm 77 and still doing my own stunts. You think I'd survive this long without laughing? More laughter now. Real. Warm. Stallone leaned in. But you can laugh and still mean it when you say something. The two aren't enemies. Kimmel nodded. He looked like he was really listening now. So, you think it's okay for actors to speak up? If they know what they're talking about, yeah. But more important, if they're ready to stand behind it when the lights go out. And that was the line. The one that would end up quoted in the Instagram reels, the TikToks, the late-night reaction videos. Say it when the lights go out. It wasn't just a catchphrase. It was a standard. The crowd clapped now, not erupting, but like a wave, building, starting from the side, growing. It wasn't performance. It was respect. Kimmel tried to steer them back again. Let's talk about your new project, the charity for veterans. It's getting a lot of buzz. Stallone nodded. It's called Second Shot. We're building gyms and training centers for vets dealing with PTSD. Not just therapy, physical space, discipline, brotherhood. That's amazing, Kimmel said. What inspired it? A guy named Reggie, Stallone said. Marine, lost 3 friends in one tour. Came back, and the only place he felt whole was in a boxing ring. He told me, I don't need people to fix me. I need something worth showing up for. Stallone paused. You could tell he wasn't reciting something. He was remembering. So we're giving them something to show up for? And that was it. No grand speech, just presence. Kimmel tried one more time to poke gently. You keep talking like this, and people are going to start calling you the philosopher of Hollywood. Stallone smiled. Better than the mascot. The audience laughed again, but this time they clapped too. Then came the final moment. So would you say this version of you, this real talk Stallone, is who you've always been? Kimmel asked. It's who I've been becoming, Stallone replied. You get older, you lose people, you survive things you didn't think you would, the masks come off, and when they do, you've got 2 choices, hide or speak. I chose to speak, and just like that, the show had transformed into something else entirely. Not entertainment, not confrontation, but truth. The audience didn't cheer right away. They sat with it, like the words needed time to land. Kimmel glanced off stage. The producers were behind the camera, frozen. No one was signaling anything. They didn't need to. Everyone in the room knew the real moment had already happened. You ever worry you'll get pushed back? Kimmel asked softly. You know, for saying things like this? Stallone nodded. Pushback doesn't scare me. Silence does. I've seen what silence does to men who carry too much alone. And I've seen what happens when one person speaks up and gives the others permission to do the same. He leaned in just a little. That's the job, Jimmy. Not to be right, just to be honest. Another pause. And I can live with people not agreeing with me. I can't live with being a coward. That line hit like a freight train. Somewhere in the back, someone murmured, "Damn," under their breath. The camera caught Kimmel swallowing. He wasn't smiling anymore, but he wasn't defensive either. He just looked grounded, like the host mask had slipped, and for a moment, it was just two men talking in front of a million eyes. Stallone eased back in his seat, looked out at the audience. I said what I said in San Antonio because I meant it. Hollywood doesn't need more awards. It needs more reminders, not of what we can do, but of who we forget when we stop paying attention. There was a stillness in the room, the kind that doesn't come from a script. It comes from truth, not shouted, just carried. Kimmel finally let out a breath. You know, I didn't expect this kind of interview. Stallone smiled. Me neither. But sometimes the best rounds aren't the ones you train for. That got a soft laugh, even from Kimmel. It was the sound of two people letting go of the tension. So what's next for you? Kimmel asked. Stallone didn't answer right away. He reached for the glass of water, took a slow sip, set it down carefully. Next, I keep showing up, keep speaking when it counts, keep building places for people who need somewhere to stand. And the movies? Oh, the movies will keep coming. I'm still having fun. But if I'm honest, Jimmy, I'm more interested in what I leave behind than how loud the trailer plays. Applause started again, stronger this time, not because of a punchline, because of the presence. You ever think about politics? Kimmel asked, half joking. Stallone didn't blink. Only if I get to wear gloves to the debate. The crowd erupted. Laughter, cheers. Even Kimmel couldn't help but grin. All right, Jimmy said, regaining a bit of rhythm. That I'd pay to see. Stallone raised an eyebrow. Careful what you wish for. They both laughed. But everyone knew they weren't just laughing at a joke. They were laughing to release the weight that had settled over the last 20 minutes. By the time the segment wrapped and they turned to promoting the veteran charity, everyone knew the show had already shifted. The real story had already happened. Outside the studio, clips hit the internet before the credits rolled. I can't live with being a coward. Say it when the lights go out. The best rounds aren't the ones you train for. Quotes on black backgrounds, reel after reel, TikTok, YouTube, X, Instagram. People weren't just watching. They were feeling it, sharing it, talking about it with captions like, "This is what presence looks like." Stallone just gave a masterclass in how to speak without shouting. He didn't go viral. He went real. News outlets jumped in, not because of outrage, but because they couldn't ignore how people were responding. NPR ran a headline, "Stallone silences late night with quiet power." Variety followed with, "When real replaces scripted, what we can learn from Stallone's interview." Even conservative and liberal pundits who rarely agreed both admitted this wasn't about sides. It was about character. And that's the word that kept coming back. Not hero, not legend, just character. At a boxing gym in New Jersey, a coach played the clip between rounds. "Watch how he holds himself," he told his fighters. "That's control." At a high school in Kansas, a teacher paused class to show a 3-minute highlight reel from the interview. "This is how you speak with conviction," she said. "Not to win, to mean it." People weren't quoting Stallone to argue. They were quoting him to remember something. And maybe that's what struck people the most. Not the jokes, not the cause, but the clarity. In a time when so many speak to be heard, Stallone spoke to be understood. No drama, no outrage. Just a quiet confidence that didn't flinch. He didn't try to win the moment. He didn't try to own the room. He just stood there, told the truth, and let it land. In the days that followed, people didn't talk about how Stallone shut down Kimmel. They talked about something deeper, about how rare it is to see a man who isn't performing, just being, and how that somehow hits harder than any punchline ever could. So maybe the lesson isn't about speaking louder, Maybe it's about speaking less often but with more weight. Maybe it's not about having the last word. Maybe it's about having a word worth remembering. Because in a world where everyone's shouting for attention, sometimes the strongest voice is the one that doesn't need to.